Hi, everybody. And today I want to talk a little bit about the work that I do in environmental engineering, environmental justice, and environmental toxicology. So, got a big smorgasbord coming up for you. Today's presentation is going to feature a tool called EJScreen, which used to be hosted by the EPA, but after the election and changes of the EPA, it's no longer hosted there. But it is hosted, or at least a version of it is hosted by Project Data in affiliation with Harvard University. Don't hold me to that name because I'm sure I'm forgetting a name in there. At any rate, we're very fortunate that someone has curated the data and allows it to be able to be used for projects like mine. My postdoc is going to focus on air quality in disadvantaged populations in Washington, D.C., and my master's thesis will eventually focus in same issues, but looking at Baltimore. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started and click on EJScreen. All righty. So what we have here is the Public Environmental Data Partners copy of EJScreen, which was a tool that was originally hosted by the EPA, which is now hosted again by Public Environmental Partners in conjunction with Harvard University. What you see here is a map of Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm going to focus a little bit on how to use this tool really briefly using Jacksonville, Florida, a town I grew up in. I grew up on the north side of town, which is where the predominant number of Black Americans live in Jacksonville, Florida. And as I understand it, and I had to do a little bit of research because I wasn't aware. I was aware that the air was very bad and that it used to stink all the time, but I didn't know why. And so, in the course of preparing for this short presentation, I learned that there was a paper mill, which was eventually closed, but that the chemical plants are actually still in the area. So, the air quality is still not that great, as we're going to see. So, there are a number of different pollutants: ozone, NO2, proximity to traffic and wastewater issues. I'm going to focus on a couple of the key environmental justice indices, which are listed on the left-hand side of this page. And let's see, we got particular matter 2.5. My studies are also going to include some information about those, ozone. The one I'm going to focus on today is NO2 or nitrogen dioxide. And as you can see, Superfund, proximity, etc., a lot of different issues come up as it relates to environmental justice, or actually, I should rephrase that. There are a lot of different contributors to environmental justice. And just briefly, environmental justice is the idea that everyone, no matter their income or their background, deserves to breathe clean air, live in a safe home, and drink clean water. Real short summary of what that means. Okay, so when you go to this website, this is the address here. And remember, I'm going to place it in the first line of the comments. I'm looking at NO2. So as soon as I press on NO2, now I have a map of the different areas in Jacksonville that have high levels of NO2. Where you go from white to red gives you an idea about the quality of the air. So the lighter the color, the better the quality, the darker the color, the worse the quality. Okay. So I want to look more at the zip code level because ultimately I'm going to compare this environmental data with census data. In order to do that, I'm going to match the two data sets by zip code. So what I do now is I go to tools, I click on boundaries, and then I'll have another menu that will show up on the right. I'm going to click on zip code. And now what I want to do is highlight the zip code that I actually grew up in. So this is the zip code that I grew up in, 32208. 32208, again, predominantly Black, as is most of the north side of Jacksonville. And unfortunately, because of where they put the map, you can't exactly see. But at any rate, it's this outline here. This zip code is 32206, 32209. And again, because I'm familiar with Jacksonville, having grown up there, I know that those are predominantly Black areas. So the one I want to focus in is the one that I grew up in, 32208. So I highlight 32208, and it gives me some coding information. Let's see, zip code and the STFIPS. That's a national coding mechanism for doing this type of work. It gives me the area of 32208. And so now I'll click on Generate Report. Now I'm able to look at EJScreen Community Report, which is going to give me demographic information and housing and age groups of people that live there, the number of churches in the area. So you'll see that in a second when I click on it. So wish I could move this around. Fortunately, it doesn't move. At any rate, I'm going to click on the EJ report. Okay, it took a few seconds there for the report to come up. So this is a summary analysis. Again, they list all of the different pollutants that are tracked by the EPA. Again, the darker the color, the worse the air quality. You can see there are a number of red areas for 32208, which actually, believe it or not, it's probably better than it was when I grew up because, as I understand it, again, I mentioned before they closed the paper mill, which means the air quality is probably much better. But as I understand it, it's still not the best. And as you can see in the map, it's still not the best. The next section lists the environmental justice indices. This is how it compares to other zip codes in the state. So for particulate matter, this 32208 is in the 95th percentile, not very good number. Let's see, let's look at some other information. I mentioned that the area is predominantly black, and that's indicated by this area being red, where we're looking at specific demographics, Hispanic, Asian, etc. And now if we go to the bottom of this page, or maybe three-quarters of the way to the bottom, this is the area 32208, and I grew up along a river called the Reebok River, and it was absolutely disgusting. I don't think anything ever lived in it, at least not during my lifetime when I lived in this neighborhood about 15 years. If we scroll down a little bit further, we can see what I mentioned about the demographic breakdown being presented in the form of a bar chart. And again, you can see that the black people are the predominant residents in this zip code. And let's see, and that's the bottom of the page. So again, this is a very useful tool. I'll be using it quite a bit, both to create images for documents like publications and theses that I produce. And then I'll also obviously be using this information that's in this table. At any rate, I hope that you all have enjoyed this brief summary of the EJScreen tool. Again, I'm going to be using it both for my research, for my postdoc, and for my master's degree in engineering. And this is a super useful tool. If you have any questions about the tool, drop some comments in the comment section. And also know that I'll be producing other or showcasing other videos about how to use the tool. I'll be looking at some other environmental justice indices. Like, for example, let's just quickly look at underground storage tanks, which are a huge problem. As you can see, this is a huge problem. If we look at lead paint, that's also a problem. So, Black Americans, minorities often live in areas which have very similar environmental justice profiles, and I'll be talking about a few of those in the weeks and months to come. Thank you for joining me.